I'm your host, Kinetic, and you're watching GameOnEnd. Hello, welcome to our add-on series. Today we're continuing our look at Trade Skill Master. So let's go check the mailbox. Alright, so let's take the expired items out. We've got our BOEs coming back. We've got a lot of the crafting reagents coming back. But we've got some sales here of some 5 stacks of clam meat. So let's go ahead and pull those out. And then run back to the auctions. Alright, so let's switch over to our auctioning tab. Let's get our BOEs back up. Okay, and restart this. And now let's take a look at the crafting items here. Okay, so we've got a stack of 5 here. Okay, and then some leftover singles, that's fine. All right. Okay, so now that we have the basics of selling items from our inventory, let's take a look at buying. So let's open up Trade Skill Master here by typing /TSM. Let's take a look at our accounting data here. So far the items that have sold for us are the clam meat and the linen cloth. So let's start there. Now we have both of those items in a group here to sell. So we look at our operations here and we have our posting operations. This gives us the price that we would like to post items for. So we also have our shopping operations here. Now we don't have a shopping operation to start with, but let's take a look at one thing. Now we've got other items in here that haven't actually sold for us yet, so we may not want to start looking to buy any of these other items. So what we want to do is start breaking these into some subgroups. So let's make a subgroup for crafting reagents in items that we would like to buy. That now gives us a subgroup here that we can drop down, click on buy, and we have items that are in the parent group, and of course it would also let us put ungrouped items into here. So let's start with clam meat and linen cloth and add those into the subgroup. Now these items are still in the group here, the parent group, and they still will have the selling operation that we have applied, but we can now see here, if we click on operations for the subgroup, that we can just follow whatever the selling operation is for the parent group, but we can also apply a shopping operation here that only goes to this subgroup by clicking override module. Now we don't have any shopping operations created yet, so we need to tell it how we would like to buy these items. So let's create a new operation here, and we'll call it crafting reagents. Buy. Okay, and we will hit yes. What this has done is offered to automatically apply this shopping operation to the group because we clicked through to it. Now, you can always go to these groups and click it here and add it here manually, but it offered to do it because we added it here. So we click over to our operations. These are our pricings, and click on shopping because this is buying, and we have this new operation that we made. Now we can do a lot of things here, and basically we can put in just a fixed price, but as we've seen before with the selling, that doesn't work too well when you're applying this to multiple items. If you're applying it to one item, you could just pick a price here that says, hey, this is the lowest number that I would like to buy this for, or maximum number that I would like to buy this for. You can also have it show, when it searches, other items that are above that price. So currently the pricing that we post items for, let's take a look here. So for these items, the lowest price that we would sell these items for is either 150% of what it would sell to the vendor for, or the average price that we've paid for these items. So let's work with our minimum price, because we don't want to buy items for more than the lowest price we would sell them for, or else we would be losing money. So let's come up with some formula here that lets us always buy things for a number that still has room to make profit. So we could either look at just the average buy price. If we buy things for lower than the price it sells to the vendor for, that's actually fine. We, at worst case, can never lose money, because we can always, if those items don't sell, we can always just sell them back to a vendor for a profit. Especially things that can be crafted into something and then with no additional materials, such as the cloth. That's great, because we can always just grab first aid and turn those into bandages and sell those to the vendor, and actually make a profit even there. So at worst case, we would never lose money on these items if we bought them for lower than the price that they sell to a vendor for. Where we could lose money is if we buy them for more than you can purchase them from a vendor for. So you do have to take a look at the items that you're going to put in the group and use a tool like Wowhead or something, and see if these items can be purchased regularly from a vendor. Now, these two items we know you can't. They're drops from world mobs only. So the vendor pricing is not really a concern here. Really, probably all we want to look at here is the price that we buy these items for. Or, sorry, the price that we would, the lowest price that we would sell the item for. So, this basically gives us a floor here of 150% of the vendor sell. So what we could say is that the maximum price we would pay for these items is 150% of the vendor sell, or something slightly lower than that, 145 or something. But we may be willing to buy these items, which would then start filling in an average price here, for some percentage of the market price. So if our normal pricing here would be, say, 95% of the region market average price, then maybe we could start with that. So let's take a look here. We have our items and we have a price. So let's say that we would always sell things for 95% of the market average price. Then we could put in something like 80%. of that market average price, and that would be fine. We would always be buying it for a amount that we could then turn around and sell it for, but we are not actually always going to be selling for that price, because we can hit this minimum price, which could then possibly be at a loss, except that we've put this caveat here of our average buy price. So realistically, let's see here. And this is where some logic kind of comes in. Let's think this through. If we are always buying for lower than this normal price, then this number will average out that price that we have paid for the items in our inventory, because we're averaging. So even if we buy a little higher or a little lower, it will give us an average price that we've paid to buy these items. And we're looking at the maximum of these two prices. So I think we would actually be safe by saying that we are fine with buying for lower than this, because the price that we buy for, as long as it doesn't go below this, yeah, so we would be okay there. Our the lowest price that we would sell these items for is the average that we've bought them for. So we would at worst be breaking even. So do we want to break even on auctions? Probably not. So let's add in some math here that helps us to not ever break even or lose money, preferably. So we would say our average buy price plus something. So let's say average buy price, or 105% of our average buy price, then we're covered. Whatever price we've paid on average to buy these items, we're then selling it for more than that. Okay, so let's go back here, and we basically have 15% margin on the price that we're buying for. We never really want to get too close to the market value, especially on these lower priced items. But let's go ahead and take a look at what happens here when we do this. Now, in items like this where there could be a lot of inventory in the auction house, like say there's a lot of linen cloth here, we may want to check this that shows items above our price, because of that margin that we have built in between the 80% and the 95% of the market value. There may be items that are, say, 90% of the market value, which we wouldn't be buying, but it also would be lower than we want to sell things for, ideally, which would be, the market value. So let's go ahead and add in items, and also so that we can see this here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have so far. We have a simple buy price on these two items of 80% of the market average. So let's go ahead and refresh this, and then on our shopping tab we now have a group here that has a shopping operation attached to it. If you create a group that you would like to buy items in, and it's not showing up here, then you may not have assigned a shopping operation. But we've done that, and this will show us the name by hovering over it. It says Operations Crafting Reagents Buy. So let's go ahead and start our search. So this will just simply search through the auction house for items that are in this group, which are linen cloth and clam meat. And then we can click into them to see the breakdown. So right now, this is great. We're actually the lowest auction up for clam meat. But we can double click in and see what else is here. And we can see that somebody else is posted here as well, right at our price. So all we've done is undercut this other item. Let's take a look at linen cloth, however. So because we've checked the box that says show items above our shopping price, we can now see all of the linen cloth that's posted on the auction house, and we can see what percentage it is of our maximum price. So right now, what this tells us is that the cheapest auctions up for linen cloth are 228% of our lowest price, or of our maximum price that we would like to buy items for, which means that we, because of that, 80% of the region market average, that's our maximum price, which means that the region market average for this cloth is about 50 silver. So we ideally would only like to purchase this when it is below that 50 silver. So right now, there's nothing really here that we can buy and sell for a profit. Now, could we maybe buy some of these items and sell them for higher? Yes, but it would be a much more difficult time trying to sell those items, because people can see, hey, it's not really what these items go for on average, and we can look at this by hovering over the item and seeing the tooltip that shows us the average price that this sells for actually is about 27 silver, and the market average price is about 54 silver. So the items that are up right now are pretty overpriced and not something we want to buy. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look here and see if we can find another item that would be worth adding into this group that we could start buying to resell or flipping. So take a look at some of our other cloths. Okay, so these items are under the market value, so let's go ahead and add these to the group. So what we'll do, the easy way that I do it is basically just open up chat and shift left click on an item and then hit enter, and that will link the item into chat, and then we reopen TSM, go back to our groups, click into our buy items, and then we can do import, click into the box, and then shift left click the item, and that will add it to the group. Now, if you've built out some groups already, you may, just to be safe, want to click move already grouped items, and that will make sure that they get moved into this group. And so let's add one other one here that we can just take a look at. Okay. And let's go ahead and open up our shopping tab and do another search. Okay, great. So we've got a few items here, and this is showing us where they're currently at as far as the relation to our shopping price. So this is not saying the percentage of the current market value. This is actually showing us the percentage of our maximum price that we would like to buy items for. So that's great. That's half of what we're willing to buy these things for. So let's go ahead and double click into it to see the breakdown, and let's buy out a few of these lower price items. And as you can see here, just be careful, it switched to a different item because we now jumped up to a higher price. So we click back into Runecloth, And let's go ahead and buy out a little bit more. See what we can do here. Now, when you're flipping, typically what people do is look at these items and look for breaks in the price, because if you cut it too close, there won't really be any room for profit. So unless you can, like we talked about earlier about doing a reset on a market, unless you can buy all the way up to some kind of break point, like right here, we've got a 20 silver break point, and that bridges the gap of what the actual market value is. It may be worth buying up to here, but we don't have enough gold to buy out all of these auctions, especially these large stacks of 200. But what we can do is buy up the cheapest ones, and then we can hang on to those until the prices go back up. So maybe we won't repost those right now, but at least we got a good deal on them. Trade Skill Master will hang on to the pricing that we paid for those things, and we'll watch for it. So down the road when we go to repost, it will know those average prices that we've paid to buy it, and we'll run a posting scan just to see what it does here. But let's go ahead and collapse that, and let's take a look at clam meat here as well. We can hover over and we can see our max shopping price there at the bottom is 2 gold 16 silver, so this is half of what we're willing to pay for it. We can see the average price there in the middle that we have sold these for, which has been about 1 gold. And we know that actually right now that is our auctions. So we definitely don't want to buy our own auctions, and I don't think we even can. But let's take a look at Mage Weave Cloth here. Okay, so we've got items that are in about the 50% of what we would like to pay for them, and it's a stack of 200. So we may have no, we don't have enough to buy this out here. Do have some smaller stacks here, which we can go ahead and start picking up a little bit of this, and it just starts giving us some inventory to flip. But nothing else looks too great. So let's see if we can find anything else that may be worth buying here. Now, typically what I like to start with is items that are needed constantly. So right now is a great time for this because there are going to be a lot of people creating allied races and leveling up new characters. And especially when there's some downtime in an expansion, people start leveling alts and working on their trade skills and doing things. So crafting items are a really great thing to start investing in and start looking at. There are still going to be people out there that are playing and leveling up, and they post items just to get it out of their inventory as they're doing dungeons and questing and stuff. They'll have lots of items that are just filling up their bags and they want to get rid of, so they start posting these items for really cheap. So the longer we sit and watch for these items, the more we can scoop up and then resell to people that are working on their trades. So it's a nice little circle there. We can see the region sale average by hovering over these items and see, what these items frequently sell for and whether they would be a good item to invest in. So start with some of the earlier stage items. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take a look through here for a bit, and then we'll jump back when we find some things worth adding. Now quickly here, I'll show you another thing you can do in Trade Skill Master with searching, is that if you look here on the inline filters, you can also search by the groups that they're in the auction house. The example there is armor, but we can also search for trade goods in those same fashions. So let's do a couple searches like that. Okay, so let's take another look at something here. Now, by default, it is searching for the DB market pricing. So we've done a search here for the items that fall under the cloth trade skill category, but we don't have a price showing because I actually haven't loaded the pricing for this specific realm. So all I have is the region pricing. So the way we can fix that, and this is actually up to you, but if we go over here to the options for shopping, we can change this price source to whatever we would like. Now this is up to you. If you only operate on one realm, and with some items, the market may actually vary pretty drastically between servers. I still kind of like to go by the region market average because, in my opinion, what that helps us do is protect ourselves against people who are trying to manipulate the market. If we're only looking at our server's pricing, let's say there's somebody who's got a lot of gold to spend and they just get in a mood and want to mess with people. They could just start buying out, say, all of the linen cloth on the auction house constantly and reposting it for 1,000 gold per cloth. Well, you know, maybe somebody would buy that, but realistically nobody's going to buy that. And that person may not care. They may just be doing it to mess with people. And we would like to put in some protections against that. So what I like to do is base my pricing off of the region averages, because that tells us across all the servers what these items are going for typically. And then we can adjust based on our server here. But because of the way we have our pricing set up to be based more off of our average buy prices anyways, we're not so worried about that. We do have some other options here for shopping that we should take a look at while we're here. There are some things we'll get into later. Say if you have the enchanting profession, it can also search for items that can disenchant on a consistent basis into items, and then we'll say with something like arcane dust or something like that, it knows the items that typically disenchant into arcane dust and could say, well, the buy price for this item is actually lower than the going price for an arcane dust, so it's actually a good value to buy this item and just disenchant it to get arcane dust, versus buying arcane dust right now because this item's actually cheaper. So we'll get into that later when we get to crafting. But we also can tweak some other things here, but we don't actually need to do that right now. We can also set up a sound for sniper, which we haven't talked about yet, but let's go ahead and do it while we're here. And then for sniper, it's usually fine to go ahead and set this because, sure, we want to buy items that we can sell to the vendor for a profit. So let's go ahead and hit OK on this here. And we will do our shopping search again. And now you can see we have percentages here. So this is based on those region prices that we specified. So we can see some other items here, and let's go ahead and get a few of these into a group. Okay, so this should be enough items to start searching here again. Let's take a look. Okay, so we've got some big stacks here. We won't have the gold to start buying these out just yet, but we can just watch for some of these smaller ones and see if there's anything that we do have the gold to invest in. Okay, so nothing just yet, so let's get some more items into this group. Okay, so we've got a lot of items here in this group now, and it's going to start getting difficult to search through these. So let's go ahead and break these out into some more subgroups. Okay, so we click into the subgroup. We select the items that we would like to move into this group. So right now we have cloth. We can select items here manually and add them. We can also filter this list out with cloth, and either you can search to remove items from a group that you accidentally added or to add in. Okay, you can see we've got our subgroups here. Now, if you're just quickly looking for one thing, let's say you are shopping actually to work on a trade skill or to craft some things, you can deselect the things to speed up the search. So, say if we just wanted to search for enchanting items because we're working on enchanting or we're crafting some scrolls or something, you can do that. But for now, we're just going to search for everything. So as we can see here, we've got lots of things now that we can sift through. But as we start getting bigger groups, the reason that this starts becoming a problem is because it starts becoming difficult to identify deals. So there's a couple of things that we can adjust here to try and make this simpler to go through. One is our maximum price. 2 is whether we're showing items that are over our maximum price or not. And of course 3 is to simplify the groups that we're searching for and do one at a time. For me, I like to get the searching done in one thing and then just know that whatever shows up are things that are worth buying. Granted, I have the gold to do it. So I'd like to keep all of these things selected as I search, but I've just got too many things showing up. So let's go back and look at the price that we are looking for when we buy. So we go to our operations, we go to our shopping operations, and we look at this. The problem is that if on this realm, say with linen cloth, if linen cloth is always selling for substantially lower than the region market average, then we're always going to have hundreds of auctions showing up in there. And it doesn't give us a good indicator of whether we should buy things or not, because on this server, these items just may not sell for what we're willing to pay for them. So what we can do is switch this to another pricing source. Instead of what the market average is, we can look at things like what are the average sell price. Now, if we put in average sell, then that will give us the average price that we have sold these for. What we actually want is the average price that it sells for. So to find out what the price is for that, we type /TSM sources, and we can see in the list here at the bottom we have DB region sale average. Okay, so let's take a look here, and in our shopping operation, let's change this to the region sale average, which will give us a more realistic price that people typically are willing to pay for this. And that number tends to be a little lower than the going market average, because of course people prefer to buy things that are a little underpriced. So we might have to adjust these numbers. These are things that you have to play with, how prices vary on your server. For right now, let's just stick with this 80% value. And now let's see what comes up. So now this percentage that's showing up here is the percentage of the maximum price we're willing to pay for it, which is now the region sale average. So these items are up for 1 gold, 15 silver, which is 33% of the average sell price of 4 gold, 34 silver. So if we take a look here and see the difference, the market value of this is 6 gold, 55 silver, but the average price that it sells for is 2 gold lower. So we're getting a more realistic idea of whether this item is worth buying or not. And then it just comes down to what you have the gold to buy. We don't have the gold to buy out stacks of 44 cloth, but we can click in and see if there are any other smaller stacks that are still in this range that we could buy out. So if we had the gold, this would be a great thing here, because as I was mentioning earlier, you want to look for gaps. So we have all of this cloth here that's up for just 1 gold, 62 silver, which is at most half of what this cloth typically sells for. And the next highest or next lowest auctions for this is up in the 4 gold range. So there's plenty of room here to undercut these. If we bought all of these out, we could undercut these and still have plenty of profit in here. So what we will do is look at something we do have the gold to buy out. And while we can't post these right now, because there's a lot of other auctions. It's another item that we can invest in and sit on until these cheaper ones get picked up by other buyers, and all that will be left are the 4 gold ones, and then we can undercut those. Now, if you don't want to babysit, of course, you can just repost these now, undercutting these, and just hope that these get bought up, and then you are the next auction in line. But for right now, we don't really have the gold to play with to risk that, because in the time being between these getting purchased, we may get undercut here anyways. So let's go ahead and wait on that for right now. So we can resort this here by items that might be more in our price range, and then still just looking at what percentage of the sale average they are. So these cloth are pretty cheap, but they again are in too big a stacks for us to buy out. So let's go ahead and grab the few items that we have purchased, and then we will wait to see if some of our auctions sell. And for now, we'll do a quick check to see if any of these items are worth posting where they're at. So again, these items are all, if we bring up our groups here, these items are all, even though they're down in these subgroups to purchase, they still have a selling operation assigned to them because they're in this parent group, which has these operations applied to it. So let's go ahead and see in the auctioning tab if we can get any of these posted. Now remember, we're not going to lose money here because the lowest that we will post items for is 105% of our average buy. So we do have a few here that it's offering for us to post. So let's get those up. Alright, so we currently have 686 gold worth of auctions up in the auction house, and hopefully a few things sell. So we'll be back soon. That will do it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, remember, pressing the like button is absolutely free. Subscribe and stay tuned for more Game on End.